Humanity's surprise. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, a war raged between ancient alien civilizations. For millennia, these advanced races had fought for dominance, their immense fleets clashing in battles that spanned star systems. To them, the young species known as humans were beneath notice, primitives confined to a single, unremarkable planet called Earth. The Zorgans, masters of technological warfare, saw themselves as the rightful rulers of the galaxy. Their advanced weapons and ships were unrivaled. On the other side were the Phantoms, a mysterious race with psionic powers that defied explanation. The two Titan empires had long been locked in a stalemate, neither able to gain the upper hand. Earth was an afterthought to them, a backdrop for their grand conflict. Humanity had achieved spaceflight, but not yet mastered faster-than-light travel. As far as the Zorgans and Phantoms were concerned, humans might as well still be planet-bound, eons away from being a serious presence on the galactic stage. That all changed when a small skirmish between Zorgan and Phantom ships unexpectedly spilled into Earth's solar system. The alien fleets, damaged and disoriented from their battle, ignored the primitive warnings from Earth's rudimentary defense systems. To them, humans posed no threat. They didn't even bother responding. But they underestimated humanity's resolve. As the alien ships exchanged fire in orbit above humanity's homeworld, Earth's leaders scrambled to mount a defense. What they lacked in technology, they aimed to make up for in courage and determination. Old rivalries and disputes were cast aside as all the nations of Earth united against this sudden alien threat. Astronauts, satellites, and jury-rigged weapons were hastily launched to face the alien menace. Though crude by galactic standards, humanity threw everything they had at the invaders. Captured alien signals were decrypted, providing clues to weak points in the aliens' defenses. Again and again, waves of human fighters and makeshift battleships swarmed the Zorgan and Phantom vessels against all odds. To the aliens' disbelief, their superior technology failed to instantly quell the human resistance. Human ingenuity found exploits in the aliens' overconfident tactics. Opportunities were seized, alien weaknesses exposed and targeted with precision. What should have been a rout turned into a grueling battle of attrition, with casualties mounting on all sides. The alien commanders were baffled by the intensity of Earth's resistance. Never before had they encountered a species so stubbornly defiant in the face of certain defeat. Even as human losses climbed into the millions, scattered resistance cells continued to hamper the aliens' every move, scoring small victories and costly trades. After days of chaotic conflict, both the Phantom and Zorgan flagships were destroyed, the remnants of their fleets driven to retreat by swarms of inferior but determined human spacecraft making suicidal attacks. Humanity's shocking upset victory rang through the galaxy, striking wonder and fear into the hearts of older civilizations that had dismissed Earth as primitive and irrelevant. Licking their wounds, the Zorgan and Phantom commanders regrouped in deep space, trying to fathom how they had been beaten back by a species that had only recently developed spaceflight. As they struggled to rationalize this humiliating defeat, both sides came to one inescapable conclusion. They had gravely underestimated humanity. Earth was no longer an insignificant backwater. It was a potential threat that needed to be crushed before it could grow any stronger. Meanwhile on Earth, there was no time to celebrate. Wary eyes scanned the skies, dreading the aliens' inevitable return. Grim-faced leaders took stock of the incalculable damage the brief war had wrought. The smoke was still rising from ruined cities when a global effort began to prepare Earth for the even greater challenges to come. Stunned but determined, humanity now realized that their old conceptions of the universe were shattered. Their miraculous triumph over the invaders was only the beginning. Earth now found itself drawn into a galactic conflict that had raged for eons before the first human had even dreamed of touching the stars. Humanity vowed to waste no time lamenting their losses or new position. Instead, in laboratories and research centers across the planet, Work began to reverse engineer the alien technology they had captured, a desperate effort to bridge the vast gulf between humanity and the ancient starfaring civilizations they now faced. The greatest minds on Earth delved into the secrets of advanced physics, dreaming up radical innovations that could give them a chance to persist in a brutally uncaring universe. As one, Earth's nations poured resources into expanding their space fleet, building stronger defenses, and developing plans for taking the fight to the alien aggressors. Humanity was now a player on the galactic stage, whether they were ready or not. In a cruel cosmic twist of fate, their baptism by fire had hurled them into an interstellar war they had never asked for. Yet in this dark hour, humanity found within themselves new reserves of resilience and courage, a determination to seek out their destiny among the stars, no matter the cost. The galaxy's calcified powers, long used to fighting each other with ancient strategies, had never encountered an upstart race quite like humanity. Flexible, adaptable, and fiercely resolute in the face of even the most dire odds, humans were a rising force that would not be easily put down. The Zorgans and Phantoms both began to realize that their miscalculation might carry a steep price. This young race might just be the catalyst for a new galactic order no one had foreseen. As the shock of humanity's upset faded, frantic activity erupted across the galaxy. The stagnant war between the Zorgans and Phantoms, long settled into a predictable pattern, had been upended by the sudden rise of a new power. Mighty alien civilizations now scrambled to make sense of a status quo turned on its head, a pivot point in galactic history whose implications were only now coming into focus. Unbeknownst to humanity, the ripples of their achievements were spreading to every corner of the galaxy, forcing long-slumbering powers to sit up and take notice. Earth stood on the precipice of a new age, one where humans would either rise to join the galactic community or burn brightly and be snuffed out like so many upstart races before them. As the peoples of Earth took their first tentative steps into a much larger universe than they had ever imagined, they steeled themselves for the monumental challenges ahead. No one on Earth or across the galaxy could predict what would come next, now that humanity had joined the fight. The only certainty was that the universe would never be the same. So begins the next chapter of the human story, one that would be written in the stars, scrambling to respond. In the aftermath of humanity's unexpected victory, the galactic stage was in turmoil. The Zorgans and Phantoms, the two reigning superpowers of the galaxy, found themselves grappling with the unthinkable. A primitive race had bested their advanced fleets in combat. As reports flooded in of the shocking defeat in Earth's solar system, the Zorgan and Phantom commanders struggled to make sense of what had happened. At first, there was disbelief. The idea that a species as young and technologically inferior as humanity could pose a threat was almost laughable. The Zorgan High Command dismissed the initial reports as exaggerations, propaganda spread by their Phantom enemies to undermine morale. It simply wasn't possible, they reasoned, for primitives who had barely left their own atmosphere to stand against the might of a Zorgan battle fleet. The Phantoms, too, were skeptical. Their psionic powers had given them unparalleled insight into the minds of lesser species. To them, humans were simple, driven by base emotions and petty conflicts. The notion that such an undeveloped race could muster the unity and resolve to repel an advanced invasion force seemed far-fetched at best. But as more data poured in, the truth became impossible to ignore. Sensor logs, combat recordings, and the testimonies of shell-shock survivors all painted the same unbelievable picture. Humanity had not only resisted but triumphed against overwhelming odds. The disbelief turned to shock, then to outrage. This wasn't just an anomaly. It was a humiliation, a blow to the pride of empires that had dominated the stars for millennia. In the halls of power on Zorgan and Phantom worlds, the debates raged. Some commanders, clinging to their sense of superiority, insisted that the defeat was a fluke, a one-time aberration that could be easily corrected. They argued for swift retaliation, a crushing display of force that would put humanity back in its place and reaffirm the established order of the galaxy. Others, however, urged caution. They pointed to the surprising tenacity and ingenuity humans had displayed in battle, traits that could make them dangerous foes if underestimated again. These voices called for a more measured response, a careful reassessment of humanity's potential before committing to a course of action. As the debates intensified, a new realization began to dawn on the alien powers. Humanity's victory, as unexpected as it was, presented opportunities as well as threats. Some began to wonder if this bold new race could be turned into an asset instead of an enemy. If humans could be convinced to ally with one side or the other, they could tip the scales of the stalemated galactic war. Factions within the Zorgan and Phantom hierarchies began to argue for a different approach to dealing with Earth. Instead of destruction, they proposed diplomacy, subterfuge, and manipulation. The humans were still primitive. They reasoned and could be swayed by promises of technology, power, or protection. If handled correctly, humanity could become a powerful pawn in the greater galactic game. As these competing strategies were debated, the galaxy's intelligence networks kicked into high gear. Spies and infiltrators were dispatched to gather more information about Earth and its defenders. The Zorgans and Phantoms, long accustomed to fighting each other, now raced to uncover humanity's secrets, to find weaknesses that could be exploited and levers that could be pulled. On Earth, the aftermath of the invasion was a time of grief, determination, and frantic preparation. The losses had been staggering, with millions dead and entire cities reduced to rubble. But even as they mourned, humanity refused to despair. The knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and that the aliens could return at any moment, spurred them to action. Across the planet, the greatest minds of a generation came together to devise plans for Earth's defense. Captured alien technology was reverse-engineered, its secrets unlocked and adapted for human use. In hidden bases and laboratories, work began on new weapons and ships, designed to even the odds against the advanced alien civilizations that now threatened Earth's existence. World leaders, setting aside their differences in the face of this existential threat, launched an unprecedented global effort to fortify Earth against the next invasion. Resources were pooled, information shared, and old rivalries put aside in service of the greater good. For the first time in history, humanity stood united, bound together by the knowledge that their survival depended on cooperation and innovation on a scale never before seen. As Earth prepared for the battles to come, the galaxy's eyes turned towards this once overlooked corner of the universe. The Zorgan and Phantom empires, long the undisputed masters of the stars, now found themselves facing an uncertain future. The rise of humanity had changed everything, introducing a new and unpredictable element into the galactic balance of power. Some among the alien powers saw humanity as a threat to be eliminated, a risk to their dominance that could not be tolerated. Others saw opportunity, a chance to gain a new ally or a tool to be used against their enemies. But all agreed on one thing: the galaxy would never be the same. The arrival of humanity onto the galactic stage had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the cosmos, for better or for worse. As the Zorgan and Phantom fleets regrouped and strategized, preparing for their next encounter with the upstart humans, an uneasy stillness settled over the galaxy. It was the calm before the storm, a brief moment of respite before the next great clash. On Earth, and on alien worlds far distant, a sense of anticipation mixed with dread. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the war for the galaxy had entered a new and unpredictable phase. Humanity, once an afterthought, had become the galaxy's focal point. Their next actions, and the reactions of the alien powers to their sudden rise, would determine the fate of countless worlds. As the eyes of the cosmos turned towards Earth, the stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The future of all sentient life hung in the balance, and only time would tell whether humanity would rise to the challenge or be consumed by the flames of war they had unwittingly sparked. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the next move in a game that had suddenly become much more interesting and much more dangerous. Humanity levels the playing field. In the wake of their surprising victory against the alien invaders, humanity wasted no time in preparing for the next confrontation. They knew that their triumph, while impressive, had been a close call, a fact not lost on the Zorgan and Phantom empires now scrutinizing Earth with new eyes. If humanity was to survive in a galaxy suddenly aware of their presence, they would need to close the vast technological gap between themselves and the ancient starfaring civilizations that now saw them as a threat. The key to humanity's survival lay in the wreckage of the alien ships that had fallen during the invasion. These vessels, even damaged, represented a technological treasure trove far beyond anything Earth's scientists had ever seen. Under heavy guard, the shattered hulls were transported to secure facilities around the globe, where teams of the world's brightest minds set to work unraveling their secrets. It was a daunting task. The technology of the Zorgans and Phantoms was centuries, if not millennia, ahead of humanity's own. The fundamental principles underlying their ships and weapons seemed to defy known physics, and the alien materials they were constructed from were unlike anything found on Earth. But driven by the knowledge that failure could mean extinction, humanity's scientists and engineers rose to the challenge with a fierce determination. In laboratories and workshops, they labored day and night, pushing the boundaries of their understanding and ingenuity. Slowly but surely, the secrets of the alien technology began to yield to human persistence and creativity. Novel alloys were reverse-engineered, their properties studied and replicated. The principles of advanced propulsion and energy generation were teased out from the ruins of alien engines. Piece by piece, humanity began to assemble the puzzle of the aliens' superior technology, adapting and improving upon it with each new discovery. As breakthroughs were made, they were quickly integrated into Earth's growing arsenal. Shipyards worked around the clock, churning out a new generation of spacecraft, incorporating alien technology alongside human innovation. These hybrid ships boasted capabilities far beyond those of their predecessors, with improved shielding, faster drives, and more powerful weapons. For the first time, humanity had a fleet that could potentially go toe-to-toe with those of the alien empires. Alongside the race to upgrade their military might, Earth's leaders also recognized the need for better intelligence on the galaxy and its inhabitants. The brief invasion had made clear just how little humanity knew about the cosmos beyond their solar system. If they were to have any hope of navigating the treacherous waters of galactic politics, they needed information, and lots of it. To that end, a vast network of listening posts and observatories was established, tasked with monitoring the alien communications and movements. Powerful telescopes scanned the skies, while sensitive receivers sifted through the chatter of the stars, seeking any scrap of knowledge that could give Earth an edge. Gradually, a picture began to emerge of the complex web of alliances, rivalries, and conflicts that defined the galaxy. At the same time, humanity's own space exploration efforts kicked into high gear. Probes and scouting ships were dispatched to nearby systems, gathering data on potential resources, habitable worlds, and strategic choke points. Mining operations were established on resource-rich asteroids, securing vital materials for Earth's burgeoning space industry. Slowly but surely, humanity began to establish a foothold in the stars, laying the groundwork for a larger role on the galactic stage. These efforts did not go unnoticed by the Zorgans and Phantoms. As humanity's capabilities grew, so too did the concern among the alien empires. Spies and infiltrators redoubled their efforts to penetrate Earth's defenses and uncover the secrets of their rapid technological progress. Sabotage and assassination were employed to slow humanity's advance, while disinformation campaigns sought to stir up fear and division among Earth's populace. But humanity's unity in the face of the alien threat proved more resilient than the machinations of their enemies. The shared trauma of the invasion and the knowledge of what was at stake drove humans to put aside their differences and work together like never before. Attempts at subversion were rooted out, while propaganda was countered with a newfound sense of global solidarity. As Earth's strength grew, the Zorgan and Phantom leadership began to worry. Their initial assessments of humanity as a primitive, easily subdued race had been dangerously off the mark. In just a short time, the humans had not only repelled an invasion, but were now rapidly ascending to challenge the established powers of the galaxy. Some began to fear that in their haste to eliminate a potential threat, they had inadvertently created an even greater one. These fears were confirmed when, scarcely a year after the first invasion, a second alien fleet arrived in Earth orbit, determined to succeed where its predecessor had failed. But this time, instead of catching humanity off guard, they found themselves facing a fully prepared and technologically advanced defender. Sleek human warships, armed with reverse-engineered alien technology, met the invaders head-on, while planetary defense grids unleashed volleys of devastating fire. The ensuing battle was fierce, a clash of advanced technology and desperate determination. But to the shock of the alien commanders, humanity's adaptations and innovations allowed them to not only hold their ground, but to push back the invading fleet. In a stunning display of newfound might, Earth's forces routed the alien armada, sending them retreating back into the depths of space. The news of humanity's second victory spread like wildfire through the galaxy, sending shockwaves through the halls of alien power. On Zorgan and Phantom worlds, the unthinkable had happened not once, but twice. The primitives of Earth, once beneath notice, had repelled the assaults of empires that had ruled the stars for eons. It was a reality that few were prepared to accept, and yet the evidence was undeniable. As the implications sank in, a new phase of the galactic power struggle began to take shape. No longer could humanity be dismissed as a minor player or a potential pawn. They had proven themselves a force to be reckoned with, a rising power that could upset the balance of the cosmos. The Zorgans and Phantoms, along with the myriad other civilizations that populated the galaxy, were forced to reassess their strategies and alliances in light of this new reality. Some saw humanity as a threat to be contained or eliminated before they grew too strong. Others saw them as potential allies, a valuable counterweight to their traditional enemies. And a few, more prescient than the rest, began to whisper that perhaps the era of the old empires was coming to an end, that the future of the galaxy might belong to this brash young race and the technological revolution they represented. On Earth, the mood was one of cautious optimism. They had proven they could defend themselves against the most advanced civilizations in the cosmos, but the cost had been high. They knew that their victories had bought them only a temporary respite, that the machinations of the galactic powers were already turning against them. But they also knew that they had the ingenuity, the determination, and the unity to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As humanity turned its gaze outward, to the stars that had once seemed so distant and unreachable, they did so with a new sense of purpose and possibility. They had been thrust into a vast and dangerous cosmos, but they had also been given an opportunity to forge their own destiny among the stars, to shape the future of the galaxy itself. It was a daunting prospect, but also an exhilarating one, a chance to write a new chapter in the story of their species. Earth stood on the threshold of a new age, poised to take its place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. The road ahead would be long and hard, fraught with challenges and dangers beyond imagining. But armed with their courage, their ingenuity, and their unbreakable unity, humanity was ready to face whatever the cosmos had in store. The galaxy would never be the same, but then again, neither would humanity. Together, they would face the future, and together, they would forge a destiny among the stars. The galaxy takes notice. As news of humanity's second victory against the alien invaders spread throughout the galaxy, the reaction among the starfaring civilizations was one of shock and disbelief. The idea that a primitive species, barely a footnote in the annals of galactic history, could not only resist but repel the might of advanced empires was nearly inconceivable. And yet the proof was there for all to see. The wreckage of Zorgan and Phantom ships drifting in Earth's orbit, the broadcasts of human celebrations echoing across the void. On worlds across the galaxy, the ruling councils and imperial courts were abuzz with talk of the unexpected developments in the Sol system. The Zorgans and Phantoms, the two superpowers that had long dominated the cosmos, found themselves the subject of gossip and speculation. How could they have been so easily bested by a race that had only recently taken its first steps into space? What did this mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? For the leadership of the Zorgan and Phantom empires, the situation was a nightmare come to life. They had long relied on their technological supremacy and fearsome reputations to maintain their hold on power, and now both had been shaken by a species they had once dismissed as beneath notice. The loss of face was almost as damaging as the military defeats themselves. Whispers began to circulate of weakness, of the once great empires grown complacent and vulnerable. Desperate to reassert their dominance, the Zorgans and Phantoms both launched massive propaganda campaigns, spinning the narrative to paint humanity as a dangerous, unpredictable threat. They accused the humans of harboring aggressive expansionist ambitions, of seeking to upset the delicate balance that had maintained peace in the galaxy for eons. They called upon their allies and vassal states to join them in containing this new menace before it could grow too powerful. But even as they sought to rally support, the Zorgans and Phantoms found themselves faced with a new and unsettling reality. For the first time in centuries, they were not the undisputed masters of the galaxy. The rise of humanity had introduced a new player onto the cosmic stage, one whose capabilities and intentions were still largely unknown. Many of the lesser species, long chafing under the yoke of Zorgan or Phantom rule, began to see Earth as a potential ally, a counterweight to the oppressive dominance of the great empires. In the halls of power on 100 worlds, a heated debate began to unfold. Some argued for a swift and decisive strike against Earth, to crush the human upstarts before they could become a true threat. Others counseled restraint, warning that an overt attack could backfire, painting the aggressor as the villain and driving more worlds to align with humanity. A few, more opportunistic than the rest, suggested that the time had come to abandon the old allegiances and seek a new arrangement with the rising power of Earth. As the debate raged, a flurry of diplomatic activity erupted across the galaxy. Emissaries from the great powers and the minor species alike converged on Earth, each seeking to sway humanity to their side. They came bearing gifts of advanced technology and promises of alliance, while their spies and saboteurs worked tirelessly behind the scenes to undermine Earth's growing strength. For the human leaders, it was a dizzying and dangerous time. They found themselves navigating a complex web of galactic politics, trying to discern friend from foe in a cosmos where the rules were very different from those on Earth. They knew that the advanced technology being offered could accelerate their development by decades or even centuries, but they also knew that such gifts rarely came without strings attached. As they wrestled with these challenges, the humans also began to realize that their victories against the Zorgans and Phantoms had earned them more than just the attention of the galaxy. They had earned them respect, and even fear. Species that had once looked upon them as primitives now saw them as potential equals or even superiors. It was a heady realization, but also a sobering one. With greater power came greater responsibility and greater risks. On Earth, the push to expand humanity's presence in the stars took on new urgency. The revelation of the complex political landscape beyond their solar system had made clear that isolation was no longer an option. If humanity wanted to survive and thrive in this new reality, they would need to engage with the galaxy on its own terms. New fleets of ships were dispatched to establish outposts and colonies on nearby habitable worlds, while diplomatic missions were sent to forge alliances with friendly species. At the same time, Earth's defenses were further strengthened, as the likelihood of future attacks from hostile powers remained high. The Moon and Mars were fortified as forward bases, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. A network of early warning stations was established in the outer solar system, ready to detect and respond to any incursion. And in secret facilities across the planet, work continued on new and ever more powerful technologies. born from the fusion of human ingenuity and alien science. As humanity's sphere of influence expanded, so too did the reactions of the galactic powers. The Zorgons and Phantoms, seeing their efforts to contain Earth failing, began to escalate their own military buildups, preparing for what they saw as an inevitable confrontation. Other species, drawn to humanity's banner by the promise of protection or the lure of shared prosperity, began to form a loose coalition around Earth, a budding alliance that threatened to upset the established order of the cosmos. And in the shadows, ancient powers long thought dormant began to stir, drawn out by the sudden shift in the galactic balance. Races that had retreated from the stars millennia ago, content to let the younger species squabble over the scraps of the cosmos, now turned their eyes back to the realm of mortals. In their ageless wisdom, they saw the potential for great change in the rise of humanity. And great danger. On Earth, and on 1,000 worlds, a sense of anticipation and unease grew. The galaxy was on the cusp of a new era, one whose shape would be defined by the actions of the coming years. Would humanity rise to the challenge, forging a new path of unity and cooperation among the stars? Or would they falter, torn apart by the same divisions and conflicts that had plagued their history, and become just another failed empire in the long annals of the cosmos? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the rise of humanity had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the very fabric of the galaxy. The old certainties were crumbling, and a new order was struggling to be born. And at the center of it all, the people of Earth stood poised on the edge of a frontier vaster and more wondrous than they had ever imagined, ready to face whatever challenges and opportunities the universe had in store. It was a moment of great promise and great peril, a moment when the fate of not just one world, but of all the worlds, hung in the balance. And as humanity looked to the stars with new eyes, they knew that the choices they made in the coming days would echo down through the ages, shaping the destiny of their species and of the galaxy itself for eons to come. Turning point. As the delicate dance of diplomacy and deterrence played out across the galaxy, a new reality was taking shape. The rising power of humanity and the shifting allegiances their ascent had triggered had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the cosmos. The old order, dominated by the Zorgon and Phantom empires, was crumbling, and in its place a new configuration was beginning to emerge, one in which Earth found itself at the center of a growing coalition of species united by their desire for change. For the Zorgon and Phantom leaders, it was their worst nightmare come to life. Their empires, which had stood unchallenged for millennia, now found themselves facing an existential threat. The humans, once dismissed as primitives, had not only proven themselves capable of defending their own world, but were now actively extending their influence across the stars. With each new ally that rallied to Earth's banner, the power of the old empires waned, and the prospect of a galaxy no longer beholden to their rule grew more real. Desperate to stem the tide, the Zorgons and Phantoms launched a series of escalating provocations, hoping to goad humanity into a misstep that could be used as a pretext for a devastating counterattack. Skirmishes erupted on the fringes of Earth's growing sphere of influence, as alien warships probed human defenses and tested the resolve of their allies. Saboteurs and assassins struck at key human leaders and installations, seeking to sow chaos and undermine the unity of Earth's coalition. But to the frustration of the old empires, humanity refused to take the bait. Guided by a new generation of leaders tempered by the fires of interstellar conflict, Earth responded to each provocation with a measured and calibrated response. They strengthened their defenses, tightened their alliances, and continued to push forward with their own agenda, a vision of a galaxy united not by conquest and domination, but by cooperation and shared purpose. As the tensions mounted, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the future of the galaxy. The Zorgons and Phantoms, recognizing that their window of opportunity was closing, began to mass their fleets for a final, all-out assault on Earth and its allies. The humans and their partners, aware of the gathering storm, prepared their own forces for what they knew would be the fight of their lives. The clash, when it came, was titanic in scale and ferocity. Across a dozen star systems, mighty armadas collided in bursts of fire and fury that lit up the void. Advanced weapons technologies, honed over centuries of interstellar warfare, were unleashed in all their terrible power, while the psionic might of the Phantoms and the technological prowess of the Zorgons sought to overwhelm the defenses of the Earth Coalition. But the humans and their allies fought with a determination and unity of purpose that their adversaries had not expected. Guided by the strategic brilliance of Earth's military leaders and driven by the indomitable will of species that had tasted the promise of a better future, they met the onslaught with a resolve that bordered on the fanatical. In the skies above worlds that had never before known the tread of human feet, Earth's starfighters dueled with Zorgon battlecruisers and Phantom sea dreadnoughts in a ballet of destruction that raged for days on end. On the ground, human marines and their alien comrades battled through the streets of shattered cities, fighting hand-to-hand against the elite shock troops of the old empires. In the depths of space, sleek human stealth ships played a deadly game of cat and mouse with Zorgon hunter-killers, while in the halls of power on 100 worlds, human diplomats fought a war of words and wills to keep their coalition from fracturing under the strain of total war. Week after week, the battle raged, the balance of power shifting back and forth as each side sought to gain the upper hand. But slowly, inexorably, the tide began to turn in favor of the Earth Coalition. The Zorgon and Phantom empires, for all their ancient might, had grown rigid and inflexible in their centuries of unchallenged dominance. They struggled to adapt to the fluid, dynamic strategies of the humans and their allies, who seemed to always be one step ahead, anticipating their every move. Moreover, the old empires found themselves fighting not just the military might of the Earth Coalition, but the very idea it represented. For too long, the Zorgons and Phantoms had ruled through fear and force, suppressing the aspirations of the lesser species in the name of stability and order. But now, those species saw in humanity a chance for something more, a chance for self-determination, for a voice in their own destiny. With each world that defied the old order and joined the human cause, the legitimacy and power of the Zorgon and Phantom regimes eroded further. As the conflict reached its climax, a series of dramatic events tipped the scales decisively in favor of Earth and its allies. In a daring raid deep behind enemy lines, a human special forces team managed to capture the Zorgon Emperor, throwing their command structure into disarray. At the same time, a Phantom defector revealed the location of their empire's psionic amplification nexus, allowing the Earth Coalition to launch a devastating strike that crippled their ability to project psychic power across the stars. With their leadership in disarray and their most potent weapon neutralized, the Zorgon and Phantom forces began to collapse. One by one, their fleets broke and fled, their armies surrendered or dissolved. Across the galaxy, oppressed populations rose up in rebellion, overthrowing their alien overlords and declaring their allegiance to the new order promised by Earth. In the end, it was not a surrender ceremony that marked the end of the war, but a simple, quiet transmission beamed across the galaxy by the human commander-in-chief. To all the free species of the cosmos, the tyranny of the old empires is ended. A new dawn has begun. And so it was that the galaxy found itself on the cusp of a new era, an era in which the destiny of the stars would no longer be dictated by the whims of ancient oppressive empires, but by the collective will of all sentient beings, an era in which the values of freedom, self-determination, and unity in diversity would guide the course of civilizations. At the center of this new order stood humanity, no longer a primitive upstart, but a mature and respected power, tempered by the trials of war and the responsibilities of leadership. The path ahead would not be easy. The scars of centuries of conflict and oppression could not be erased overnight, and the challenges of forging a truly galactic civilization were immense. But guided by the wisdom gained through their struggle, and buoyed by the hope and trust of a grateful galaxy, They were ready to face the future. And so, as the guns fell silent and the fires of war cooled, the peoples of the galaxy looked to the stars with new eyes. For the first time in living memory, the cosmos seemed not a dark and hostile place, but a realm of infinite promise, a frontier waiting to be explored, a canvas upon which to write the next chapter of their shared story. In the halls of power on Earth and on 1,000 worlds, a new generation of leaders set to work, drafting the frameworks and institutions that would guide the galaxy forward. And in the hearts of countless beings, a new sense of possibility took root. The conviction that whatever challenges the future might hold, they would face them together, united by bonds stronger than the pull of gravity or the barriers of species. The age of empires had ended. The age of unity had begun. And at the vanguard of this new era, the people of Earth stood ready to take their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners in the great and endless adventure of existence. First contact and defiance. The vast emptiness of space stretched before the UES Andromeda, stars glittering like distant beacons in the darkness. Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display hovering above the central console. The ship had been exploring the farthest reaches of charted space for 3 months now, pushing the boundaries of human expansion further into the unknown. Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures at coordinates 247 to 8932, Lieutenant Raj Patil announced, his fingers dancing across his console. They don't match any known human technology. Maya straightened, brushing a strand of her short black hair behind her ear. Put it on the main display. The hologram shifted, revealing a strange warping of space approximately half a light year away. The energy patterns pulsed in a rhythmic sequence that seemed almost artificial in its precision. Is it a natural phenomenon? Maya asked, leaning forward. Science Officer Dr. Eliza Wong shook her head. Not likely, Captain. The patterns are too regular, too controlled. If I had to guess, I'd say we're looking at some kind of spatial boundary marker, a border. Maya raised an eyebrow. Out here, humanity had expanded rapidly into space over the last century, but they had yet to encounter any other spacefaring civilizations. There had been theories, of course, ruins on distant planets, strange signals from the void, but nothing concrete, nothing like this. Shall we approach, Captain? Navigator Sarah Johnson asked, her hand hovering over the controls. Maya considered for a moment. Her orders were to explore, to push the boundaries of human knowledge. If this was indeed a border of some kind, what lay beyond it? Take us in, slow approach. Keep sensors at maximum range and shields up as a precaution. The Andromeda moved forward, its fusion drives glowing the soft blue against the blackness of space. As they neared the energy distortion, the ship's sensors began picking up more details. Captain, I'm detecting ships on the other side of the boundary, Raj reported, his voice tense. Multiple vessels, significantly larger than the Andromeda. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. First contact. After centuries of searching the stars, humanity might finally have found neighbors in the cosmic wilderness. Are they moving toward us? Yes, ma'am. 3 vessels have altered course to intercept. Their speed suggests advanced propulsion technology. Maya nodded, keeping her expression calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. All hands to alert status. Open a channel on all frequencies and prepare first contact protocols. The bridge crew moved with efficient precision, each member trained for this moment despite its unlikelihood. The Andromeda was primarily an exploration vessel, but like all ships in the United Earth Fleet, it carried defensive capabilities. Channel open, Captain. Communications Officer Lai Wei announced. Maya straightened her uniform and stepped into the center of the bridge. This is Captain Maya Chen of the United Earth ship Andromeda. We are an exploration vessel from Earth. Approaching in peace, we seek communication and mutual understanding. For several tense moments, there was no response. Then the main screen flashed, and an alien face appeared. The being had elongated features, with pale green skin that seemed almost translucent. Its eyes were large and entirely black, lacking visible pupils. A ridge of small bone-like protrusions ran from the top of its head down to where a human nose would be, and its mouth was a thin line that barely moved as it spoke. "Human vessel," the alien said in perfect English, making Maya's eyes widen in surprise. "You have violated the sovereign territory of the galactic hegemony. This sector has been under hegemony control for 12,000 stellar cycles. Your presence is unauthorized and illegal." Maya maintained her composure, though questions raced through her mind. How did they know English? How long had they been observing humanity? "We apologize for any inadvertent violation," she replied diplomatically. "We were unaware of your presence or your territorial claims. We are explorers seeking peaceful contact with other civilizations." The alien's expression remained unchanged, but something in its posture seemed to stiffen. "The hegemony has been aware of your species for some time. Your primitive technological development did not warrant formal contact. Until now, you have remained within your designated developmental zone." Maya felt a flash of indignation at the dismissive tone, but she kept her voice level. "We would be interested in establishing diplomatic relations with the hegemony. Perhaps we could arrange a formal meeting." "That will not be necessary," the alien replied. "You will return to your developmental zone immediately. The hegemony does not negotiate with lesser species. You have one standard rotation to comply, or your vessel will be destroyed as a warning to others of your kind." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Well," Maya said after a moment, "that was rather rude." A nervous chuckle rippled through the bridge crew, breaking some of the tension. "Captain, the alien vessels are maintaining position approximately 50,000 kilometers from our current location," Raj reported. "Their weapon systems appear to be active, but not locked on us yet." Maya nodded, her mind racing. "Dr. Wong, what can you tell me about their technology based on sensor readings?" Elisa studied her console, brow furrowed in concentration. "Their energy signatures suggest a propulsion system similar to our gravitic drive, but more refined. Their hulls appear to be composed of a crystalline alloy we haven't encountered before. As for weapons, it's hard to say. They're certainly armed, but I can't determine the exact nature of their offensive capabilities." "Captain," Sarah interjected, "I've been analyzing their movement patterns. They're precise, almost predictable. Their formation hasn't varied since they approached us." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Predictable?" "Yes, ma'am. It's as if they're following a standard protocol without adaptation." Maya began to pace the bridge, considering their options. Protocol dictated that they should retreat and report the encounter to Earth Command. But something about the alien's dismissive attitude rankled her. "They've been watching us," she mused aloud, "keeping us in a developmental zone like animals in a zoo. And now they expect us to scurry away at the first sign of displeasure." "Ma'am, they did threaten to destroy us," Lai pointed out nervously. Maya smiled, a gleam in her eye that her crew had come to recognize. "And sometimes fear." "Yes, they did. Very loudly and clearly, in perfect English, almost as if they wanted to make absolutely sure we understood the threat." She turned to her tactical officer. "Lieutenant Parker, if they wanted to destroy us, could they have done so already?" Lieutenant Emma Parker considered the question. "Based on their positioning and the energy readings from their vessels, I believe they could have attacked immediately if that was their primary objective." "So they're posturing," Maya concluded, "trying to intimidate us into retreat without actually risking conflict. Or they're giving us a chance to comply with their laws," Elisa suggested cautiously. Maya nodded. "Perhaps. Either way, I don't think they know as much about humans as they'd like us to believe." She tapped her comm badge. "Engineering, this is the captain. How quickly can you modify our sensor array to emit a focused tachyon pulse?" Chief Engineer Victor Petrov's gruff voice came through the speaker. "A tachyon pulse? What for, Captain?" "A little experiment, Chief. I want to probe their shields without appearing directly aggressive." There was a pause. "Give me 30 minutes, Captain." "You have 15." Maya replied, closing the channel. She turned to her crew. "Here's what we're going to do. Lieutenant Parker, prepare a series of micro-jumps, random pattern, to be executed on my command. Dr. Wong, I want a complete analysis of their shield harmonics as soon as the tachyon pulse makes contact. Lieutenant Patel, monitor their communications frequencies for any internal chatter our encounter might have generated." "Captain," Lai said hesitantly, "are you sure this is wise? We're significantly outgunned." Maya's expression softened slightly. "I understand your concern, Lai, but think about what just happened. An advanced alien civilization has been watching humanity, containing us without our knowledge. They've decided our fate without consultation or respect. If we retreat now, we establish a precedent that humans can be frightened into compliance with a single threat." She looked around at her crew, meeting each person's eyes. "I'm not suggesting we fight a war we can't win, but I am suggesting that we show these hegemony representatives that humans don't scare easily, and we don't accept arbitrary limitations on our growth. If they've been watching us, they should know that already." 15 minutes later, the Andromeda executed its plan. The tachyon pulse, harmless but informative, washed over the hegemony vessels. Before they could respond, the human ship performed a series of short, unpredictable jumps, appearing at different coordinates around the alien formation. "Their shields are adapting," Dr. Wong reported excitedly. "But I've got what we need. Their shield frequencies operate on a predictable mathematical progression." "They're transmitting again," Lai announced. The alien face reappeared on screen, black eyes now narrowed in what Maya interpreted as anger. "Your provocative actions will not be tolerated. This is your final warning." Maya smiled pleasantly. "I apologize for any misunderstanding. We were merely conducting standard exploratory maneuvers to better understand our environment. It's a human characteristic, curiosity. Sometimes it gets the better of us." The alien seemed momentarily taken aback by her casual response. "Your primitive displays do not impress the hegemony. You will depart immediately." "Actually," Maya replied, leaning forward, "I've been thinking about your earlier statement. You mentioned that the hegemony doesn't negotiate with lesser species. That implies you do negotiate with species you consider equals. I'm curious, what criteria do you use to determine a species' status?" The alien's mouth twitched in what might have been surprise. "This discussion is irrelevant. Comply or face destruction." "It seems quite relevant to me," Maya countered. "After all, if we're going to establish a long-term relationship between humanity and the hegemony, understanding your social hierarchy is important." "There will be no relationship," the alien stated flatly. Maya's smile widened. "I think you'll find that humans are rather persistent when it comes to making new friends. In fact, I'd like to propose a meeting between your representatives and mine, perhaps aboard your vessel, as a gesture of our trust." For the first time, the alien appeared genuinely confused. Its large eyes blinked rapidly, and it turned slightly as if consulting with someone off-screen. "Your behavior is unexpected," it finally said. "I get that a lot," Maya replied cheerfully. "Now about that meeting." The Empire's miscalculation. The interior of the Hegemony flagship was a marvel of engineering that would have sent Earth scientists into ecstasies of delight. Crystalline corridors stretched in geometric precision, bathed in a soft blue light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Captain Maya Chen walked with confident strides, flanked by two of her officers, Dr. Eliza Wong and Lieutenant Emma Parker, and surrounded by a contingent of hegemony guards. The aliens, who had identified themselves as the Vraks, moved with a fluid grace that belied their tall, slender frames. Their translucent skin revealed shadowy outlines of complex internal organs, unlike any terrestrial biology. Maya found herself fascinated by the subtle variations in their ridge patterns, apparently an indicator of rank within their rigid social hierarchy. Your vessel will remain under surveillance during these discussions, stated their escort, a Vrax who had introduced himself as Sub-Commander Nextfall. Any attempted communications or movements will result in immediate termination of this meeting. Understood, Maya replied pleasantly. Though I assure you, my crew has strict orders to behave themselves. What she didn't mention was that those orders included a specific contingency plan that had been rapidly developed during the 4 hours it had taken for the hegemony to decide whether to accept her proposal for a meeting. They were led into a vast chamber dominated by a circular platform surrounded by tiered seating. Maya recognized the setup immediately. This was not a meeting room, but a judgment hall. The hegemony had no intention of negotiating. They meant to deliver a formal censure. At the highest tier sat a Vrax whose head ridges were adorned with metallic ornaments that caught and refracted the light. Beside this figure sat several others with similarly decorated but less elaborate ridges. The High Executor will now address the human delegation, Nextfall announced, gesturing for Maya and her officers to stand on the central platform. Maya complied, but rather than adopting the submissive posture the Vrax clearly expected, she stood tall, hands clasped behind her back in a relaxed military stance. The High Executor spoke, his voice deeper and more resonant than the other Vrax they had encountered. Captain Maya Chin of Earth, you stand before the Judgment Council of the Galactic Hegemony. For 12,000 stellar cycles, the hegemony has maintained order among the stars. Lesser species are permitted development within controlled parameters to prevent chaos and destructive expansion. Maya listened politely, noting the way the High Executor emphasized certain words, the subtle shift in his posture when he mentioned controlled parameters. The Vrax were revealing more than they realized with every statement. Humanity has been designated a Category 3 developmental species, the High Executor continued. Your technological advancement is monitored to ensure it does not disrupt the greater galactic balance. Your presence beyond your designated zone is a violation of Hegemony Directive 5291. I see, Maya said when he paused. And may I ask when this designation was decided, and by whom? The High Executor blinked, those large black eyes narrowing slightly. The designation was established 400 stellar cycles ago by the Classification Council, following standard observational protocols. 400 years, Maya mused. That would be around the time of our Industrial Revolution. Then, interesting timing. She took a step forward, causing the guards to tense. High Executor, I appreciate your willingness to meet with us. However, I believe there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about humanity's current status. She gestured to Dr. Wong, who produced a small holographic projector. Before the guards could intervene, Wong activated it, displaying a complex three-dimensional model of what appeared to be the Vrax flagship. This is a reconstruction of your vessel's internal structure, based on passive scans we conducted during our approach, Maya explained conversationally, as if she were discussing the weather rather than revealing capabilities that clearly shocked the assembled Vrax. We've identified your primary power distribution nodes, propulsion systems, and what we believe to be your central computational nexus. The chamber erupted in hisses and clicking sounds as the Vrax counselors conferred frantically with each other. The High Executor raised a six-fingered hand, restoring order. Such scanning would be impossible with your level of technology, he stated, though his tone held a note of uncertainty. Maya smiled. Perhaps by your estimation of our technology, yes. But humans have a peculiar trait. We tend to develop unevenly. While we might lag behind in some areas, we often surge ahead unexpectedly in others. She nodded to Lieutenant Parker, who stepped forward. We've also analyzed your shield harmonics, Parker stated, her voice clear and professional. They operate on a predictable mathematical sequence that cycles every 3.7 seconds. With the right timing, a focused energy burst could create a momentary window in your defenses. This was, in fact, a calculated bluff. The Andromeda's sensors had detected the cycling pattern, but they were far from being able to exploit it effectively. However, the reactions of the Vrax counselors, their rapid blinking, and the way several reached for communication devices told Maya that her officers had hit uncomfortably close to the truth. "Is this a threat?" the High Executor demanded, rising from his seat. Maya kept her expression mild. "Not at all. It's an exchange of information between potential allies. You've been studying us for centuries. It seems only fair that we share some observations of our own." She paused, letting the tension build before continuing. "High Executor, the hegemony has clearly established an impressive interstellar civilization. We admire your achievements. However, your assessment of humanity is based on outdated information. In the last century alone, our technological development has accelerated exponentially." As if on cue, her communication device chimed. Maya had set this up before leaving the Andromeda, a perfectly timed interruption that would add weight to her next statement. "Ah, it seems our reinforcements have arrived," she said, making a show of checking the device. "You see, when we realized we might have encountered an advanced civilization, we sent a quantum entanglement message to Earth. Standard procedure, you understand." This was true, though the reinforcements were still days away. The Andromeda had indeed sent a message using humanity's newest communication technology, one that the hegemony might not have known humans possessed. The High Executor's composure cracked slightly. "Quantum entanglement communication is a restricted technology. Category 3 species are not permitted." "Yes, about that classification," Maya interrupted smoothly. "I believe it requires revision. Humanity hasn't been confined to our solar system for nearly 70 years now. We have colonies on 17 extrasolar planets and mining operations in 26 star systems." She gestured around the chamber. "We don't seek conflict with the hegemony. In fact, we see tremendous potential for mutual benefit through diplomatic and trade relations, but those relations must be based on mutual respect, not arbitrary restrictions based on outdated assessments." A new voice spoke from one of the lower tiers, a female Vrax with elaborate mathematical patterns etched into her head ridges. "High Executor, logic suggests we should reevaluate. If the humans possess quantum entanglement communication and advanced scanning capabilities, they have already surpassed several Category 2 civilizations." The High Executor's ridge patterns darkened in what Maya interpreted as displeasure. "Counselor Tevron, this is not the appropriate forum for—" "Actually," Maya interjected, "I find Counselor Tevron's perspective refreshing. Perhaps she would be an excellent liaison for establishing formal diplomatic relations between our peoples." This calculated statement had the desired effect of creating visible division among the counselors. Several nodded in agreement while others bristled at the human's presumption. Before the High Executor could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. A Vrax officer hurried in, approaching the High Executor and speaking rapidly in their native language. A series of clicks, hisses, and modulated tones. Maya maintained her composed expression, though internally she was concerned. This wasn't part of her plan. The High Executor rose, his black eyes fixed on Maya. "3 vessels have emerged from faster-than-light travel at the border of this sector. They claim to be human ships responding to a distress call from the Andromeda." Maya couldn't hide her surprise. The reinforcements shouldn't have arrived for at least another 5 days. Either Earth Command had developed even faster ships than she knew about, or someone else had been monitoring this region of space. Seizing the opportunity, she nodded as if this were exactly what she'd expected. "As I mentioned, we sent a message when we encountered your border. Standard procedure. These vessels are significantly larger than yours," the High Executor stated, a note of accusation in his voice. "Of course," Maya replied smoothly. "The Andromeda is an explorer vessel. When potential first contact situations arise, we send more substantial ships to ensure proper diplomatic representation." This was complete improvisation, but Maya knew better than to show uncertainty. Whatever ships had arrived, they were claiming to be human, and that was enough for now. The High Executor conferred briefly with several counselors before turning back to Maya. "This council will recess to assess this development. You will be escorted to a waiting area." As they were led from the chamber, Dr. Wong leaned close to Maya. "Captain, what's going on?" Earth couldn't possibly have responded this quickly. "I know," Maya murmured. "Either someone's pretending to be us, or we have friends we didn't know about." The waiting area turned out to be a luxurious but clearly monitored suite. As soon as they were alone, Maya gathered her officers close. "Options?" she asked quietly. "If those ships are hostile and masquerading as human, we could be caught in the crossfire," Lieutenant Parker pointed out. Dr. Wong nodded. "On the other hand, if they are human, perhaps from a classified military program, their arrival dramatically strengthens our negotiating position." Maya considered both possibilities. "I think we proceed as if they're friendly until proven otherwise. The hegemony's reaction tells me they're concerned. They didn't immediately dismiss these new arrivals as a threat they could easily handle." 3 hours later, they were summoned back to the council chamber. The atmosphere had changed noticeably. Where before there had been dismissive arrogance, now there was cautious assessment. The High Executor spoke without preamble. "Captain Chen, we have communicated with the commander of your reinforcement vessels. Their technological capabilities exceed our initial assessment of human development. The Hegemony Classification Council has been convened to reassess humanity's status." Maya nodded, maintaining her diplomatic demeanor while internally celebrating this shift. "We appreciate the hegemony's willingness to adapt to new information. This speaks well for our future relations. The Council has granted permission for one of your reinforcement vessels to dock with this station," the High Executor continued. "Their commander will join these discussions." Maya felt a flutter of anxiety. She had no idea who was about to walk through that door, or what their agenda might be, but she kept her expression confident as they waited. Minutes later, the chamber doors opened, and a tall, gray-haired man in a uniform Maya didn't recognize strode in. His insignia suggested high rank, but the design was unlike any United Earth Fleet uniform she'd seen. The newcomer bowed formally to the council before turning to Maya with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Captain Chen, Admiral James Erickson, United Earth Defense Fleet. Your message was received with great interest." Maya managed to hide her confusion. There was no United Earth Defense Fleet, at least not officially, but she recognized a cue when she heard one. "Admiral," she acknowledged with a crisp nod. "Thank you for your prompt response." Erickson turned to address the council. "High Executor, members of the Hegemony Council, I bring greetings from Earth. While we regret the circumstances of our first official contact, we look forward to establishing peaceful relations between our civilizations." What followed was a masterclass in diplomatic negotiation. Admiral Erickson, whoever he really was, presented data on human technological capabilities that Maya knew to be exaggerated, but not by as much as she might have expected. He spoke of Earth's defensive capabilities, its industrial capacity, and its rapid expansion with a calm authority that clearly impressed the Vrax counselors. By the time the session concluded 6 hours later, the hegemony had agreed to formal diplomatic recognition of humanity as a Category 2 civilization, with provisional rights to navigate designated trade corridors through hegemony space. As they walked toward the docking bay, where a shuttle waited to return them to the Andromeda, Maya finally had a moment alone with the mysterious admiral. "United Earth Defense Fleet?" she questioned quietly. Erickson's smile was more genuine this time. "Unnecessary fiction, Captain. The ships that responded to your message aren't strictly official private vessels." Maya asked, realization dawning. "Let's just say there are elements within Earth's government that have been preparing for this day longer than the general public knows," Erickson replied. "Your encounter created the perfect opportunity for a more substantial introduction than might otherwise have been possible." Maya considered this carefully. "You've been operating beyond official Earth space. That's how you responded so quickly." "You're as perceptive as your file suggested," Erickson said approvingly. "Yes, we've had outposts in this sector for nearly a decade. When your quantum message came through, we couldn't pass up the opportunity." And the hegemony. They didn't detect your operations until now. Ericsson's expression hardened slightly. The hegemony isn't as omnipotent as they'd like everyone to believe. They've grown complacent over the millennia. Their patrol patterns are predictable. Their sensor technology effective but static. They haven't faced a serious challenge in thousands of years. Maya processed this information, understanding its implications. They've been containing species they consider threats, keeping them isolated from each other. Precisely, Ericsson nodded. But humanity has never responded well to containment. And now, thanks to your initiative, we have official recognition and navigation rights that will make our expansion much easier. As they boarded the shuttle, Maya looked back at the massive hegemony station. What had begun as a routine exploration mission had turned into humanity's formal introduction to galactic politics. The galactic hegemony had expected humanity to cower and retreat when faced with superior technology and threats. They hadn't counted on human audacity, adaptability, and the simple fact that telling humans they couldn't do something was the surest way to guarantee they'd try. The last thing Maya saw before the shuttle doors closed was a group of Vrax counselors watching their departure, their black eyes unreadable but their postures suggesting uncertainty. The message was clear. The galaxy had just become a more complicated place, and humanity had announced its presence not with fear, but with a confident smile and a handshake that couldn't be refused. As the shuttle detached from the station, Admiral Ericsson turned to Maya. "Congratulations, Captain Chen. You've just secured humanity's place among the stars." Maya smiled. "I just did what any human would do when told to go back to their room and be quiet." "Exactly," Ericsson replied with a knowing grin. "And that's precisely what the hegemony will never understand about us."